Instead of paying for CDs, music lovers can now download tracks from the internet.
It's the most revolutionary thing to hit our industry probably since the electric guitar was introduced in one way.
The loss of revenue is potentially enormous, and not only for the record industry. What digital compression and online delivery will mean is effectively stripping out most of the current supply chain.
The winners and losers when we click to the beat. That's our story tonight.
Around Australia, the ABC's Lateline. Here's Tony Jones.
Welcome to the program. If there were ever to be a serious challenge to the handful of major record labels that control the music industry, it could only come, as they say, from left field. Most recording artists are completely reliant on the majors to market and distribute their music. Only a rebel would take them on. Rap star Chuck D, better known as the leader of the band Public Enemy, might well have been typecast for the role. After disagreements with his record company, he ended their long-standing contract and took Public Enemy onto the internet. Until Polygram's lawyers put a stop to it, he posted previously unreleased tracks on the net, where anyone with the technology could download them for free. Chuck D likened himself to a slave who'd been freed from an oppressive master. That sort of rhetoric has made him a standard bearer of the MP3 movement, named after the technology used to compress music into digital and downloadable files on the net. So will MP3 revolutionise and democratise the industry, as Chuck D hopes? Or will the big players move back in and take control? In a moment, we'll be joined by the rapper himself, by a developer of the new technology, and by the head of Australia's Record Industry Association. But first, this report from Fiona Clark.
You've been carried away. While Will Halliday performs, there's a quiet revolution going on in cyberspace, and he's just become part of it. It's the technology which allows music to be digitally compressed and downloaded from the internet. And for Will, it could launch his career. He's just posted his album on the net and is already getting results. Closer towards the rocks and the cliffs.
What normally would have been heard perhaps just in a local area is now being able to be heard sort of from London to America, and I know that there have been people that have downloaded and sent me emails saying how much they like the music.
Better still, it's selling, something that makes his online distributor very happy.
Great songs, no matter what mood.
Victoria Deutsch is company director of Chaos Music, one of a growing number of online music sale companies who offer free sample tracks for digital downloading.
We've proven, over the last year that artists that give away tracks for download experience an increasing sale of hard copy product. So there's a correlation between giving a track away and hard copy sales. So at the moment, the whole downloading environment, if an artist uses it efficiently, can just be a promotional tool to sell CDs.
That should be music to the ears of the major record companies. But so far, while they recognise the potential of what many describe as revolutionary technology, the risks of piracy far outweigh the benefits of online sales.
The way the revolution works is that before it used to be the multinational record companies that were the gatekeepers of music. They had the exclusive rights, and they had the technology to produce discs that nobody else could make and distribute them through retail stores to consumers. But with the internet, all that's changed.
Well, I've seen one estimate that suggests that 90% of the music available on the net at the moment is unauthorised by the copyright owners. Now, obviously, if that were to continue, it poses an enormous threat to the recording industry and to a great many artists.
The losses in revenue could be huge already. Music sites are now #1 on the internet hit list, knocking pornography sites from the top spot. Putting that in perspective, In the first 6 months of this year, 17 billion music files, or MP3s, were downloaded. That's 3 times more than the number of CDs bought in the whole of last year.
Just go into the dance techno section. A lot of the times I've been to some record stores and haven't found the exact track that I want, but if we can get access to it over the internet straight away, I mean, there you go, we can do it in 20 minutes.
David and Sasha are veterans in the art of downloading. Over the past 2 years, they've recorded more music from the net than they'd care to remember. The main attraction for them is the freedom of choice.
With a record store, it's like you get a compilation and 5 out of the 17 songs in the compilation you don't want to sort of listen to, or vice versa. So with the advantage of the MP3s, you can create your own compilation online, put it into sort of like an area on the website, and then when you're ready, put a CD in the burner and burn the CD. Swipe your credit card details through beforehand and you've complete the transaction and you've got yourself a customised CD.
But most of the music on offer is free, leaving the record companies wondering if there's any way they can put the genie back in its bottle.
What they're having to do is figure out, in an ethereal world of non-atomic products, how do you take this little 3-minute song and deliver it to a consumer and make them believe that there's value in it to pay for it.
Stopping piracy is another great challenge.
The copyright law still works very effectively in the sense that if it's an unauthorised copy of a record, then it's an infringement of copyright. But the problem is the practicalities of that. You could have someone upload some digitally compressed music in, for instance, Papua New Guinea, put it on a site that's accessible around the world. Then the question is, how do you enforce your copyright?
Despite the risks, a number of major artists like David Bowie and Public Enemy have launched their new albums on the net. Artists like Public Enemy's Chuck D hope the net will see an end to the major labels' monopoly of the industry and the beginning of a whole new world of entertainment.
If you look at the future and you can actually go online and download a track for, say, $3 and download a CD quality sound file and the video clip and have it sitting in your entertainment unit, you know, that's fantastic potential.
That report from Fiona Clark, and now to my guests. Chuck D is the frontman for the politically outspoken hip-hop group Public Enemy. He recently broke ranks with his record company to release his latest album on the web and has been a strident critic of record company distribution monopolies. He joins us from Seattle. Emmanuel Candy is Executive Director of ARIA, the Australian Record Industry Association. He's a Director of Music Industry Piracy Investigations and is experienced in the fields of copyright, trademark and trade practices law. He served as the industry's representative on a number of government committees, and he joins us tonight from Sydney. Dick Wingate is Vice President of Content Development for Liquid Audio, which promotes and sells digital music online. He's held senior positions with a number of major record labels and has worked with artists such as Bruce Springsteen, Elvis Costello, Peter Tosh and Bon Jovi. He was one of the earliest music executives to embrace interactive music marketing. He joins us tonight from New York. Welcome to all of you.
Pleasure.
Peace.
Thank you.
Chuck D, tell us, if you will, your vision of the future. What's the potential for this new technology and how's it going to change the music industry?
Well, number one, I foresee this technology as presenting a parallel alternative for a lot of musicians, a lot of people that want to get into the music business, who previously haven't found a way to get in as far as a controlling aspect. The music business, which is run primarily nowadays by lawyers and accountants and business people who care a little or less about the art, have always depended on the naivety of the artist and the public, therefore placing the emphasis as themselves as the middlemen. This is the way that possibly things could get balanced out, not eradicating the middle, but showing that a more educated artist and a more educated public will make a better music industry to foresee in the near future. By 2002, I foresee downloadable distribution to present 1 million artists and 500,000 labels into the marketplace. The marketplace will have to be shared and splintered, and I don't have a problem with that. If people argued about downloadable music such as MP3 or whatever, it's the same arguments that go back in the late 60s when they were screaming about FM radio. I mean, I think the exposure capabilities around the planet was very beneficial to artistry, And, you know, hey, to get your music exposed around the planet without a middleman being so intrusive is great.
Now, when you quit your label and moved across effectively to sell your music on the internet, you likened yourself to a freed slave. Now, was that just dramatic license?
Yeah, I'm a poet. So my whole thing is like, you know, my whole thing is that, you know, contractually, I thought that the major labels, the 5 major labels, hinder you with their contracts. For example, the first line on many contracts is a territorial line. And that territorial line usually says they have the rights to control the product over the world and the universe. And therefore, I know that 2 out of the 5 continents, you know, they can't even sell records in. So why are they taking my worldwide rights? And what is this thing about the universe? I mean, so therefore, they have rights where no man or no artist has ever gone before. And I just think that certain things needed to get balanced out. We had different philosophical reasons. I have a relationship with each and every territory, and to be able to go into those territories and build each relationship directly is more important to me.
Now, just very briefly, do you think that's going to break the power of the major record labels as we know them?
No, just like in kindergarten, it'll just force them to share the marketplace. And anybody that has these beliefs of, well, the traditional way is the way to go and we protect the artists, you know, that's full of crap because, you know, primarily, you know, the percentages that artists have received are nowhere near what should have been. So when it comes down to artist rights and freedoms, you know, I do not care for my rights to be determined to me by some lawyer and accountant who cares less about the art. You know, to them, you know, they'll flip their beliefs with a turn of the hat. So they don't really believe in anything other than their paycheck. You know, what pays them the most is what they adhere to. And what it is job mentality versus creative mentality. And when you create something, you feel that you should own a bigger part of it. When you have a job for a big corporation, whether you're getting $10 billion or whatever per year, you're just subservient to that order of rule that's going down. I don't care what anybody says.
Emmanuel Candy, how would you feel about the power shifting in this way from the control of the big record companies to the hands of the artists themselves?
Well, I don't really think that's the key issue. I think the key issue is one of the other things that Chuck said, that in the digitized world, the online world, we're going to see an immense amount of opportunities, an immense amount of artists and other record labels, and in many instances the artists will be the record label themselves, with their own distribution network and their own way to get to consumers. Because the internet or the World Wide Web doesn't have a territory. Anyone can get on there. You can set up your own system. But then, you know, it's going to come down to a couple of fundamentals. Is the record good? Do people like it? And how are they going to find out about it? Simply placing something up on the internet by itself, it's not going to do you a lot of good. You have to attract attention to it. Now, your first guest, Chuck, has come up off a platform of being involved with major record companies, selling records. He's still touring. He has a platform that readily lends itself to launching himself in this new retail channel of the digitized world. Many artists, other artists don't. Now, there's just going to be a lot more opportunities. There's also a lot more threats with piracy. And I don't know of anyone, really, that's got a problem with that. Where the scratching of the head's going on is just exactly how will we get the consumer's attention and how will the product be supplied? Will it be track by track, album by album, some type of subscription service? All these questions will be sorted out in the marketplace over the next few years.
Chuck D, were you in
by business people.
By business people. Were you
go ahead.
Were you in a privileged position, though, as an artist? You did work with big record companies. Were you actually given a platform from which to launch yourself? Or does that make your situation vastly different from the host of young, unknown artists?
I was recruited, so when somebody came to me, it was a head-to-head deal with Rick Rubin, who worked and owned Def Jam Records, so I wouldn't get in the music business any other kind of way. I would, you know, counter that fact is that as far as artists are concerned, 0.3 have a chance to getting in the music business anyway. This way they can learn a basic 101 and get in there at least at a minor status and then be recruited by somebody that gives them an offer that they can't refuse. I would advise artists this this thing in the near future is that you will have two different contractual situations. You have an online and you have an offline. So if somebody like EMI or BMG or one of the other three come to you, before you sell your whole thing out, say, okay, yeah, you got my offline rights. Now, in order to get my online rights, you might have to pay twice as much. So let it be a business-to-business foothold. And for example, was I privileged? I made my decision. I didn't regret my decision back then. I just thought in 1994, as the complexion of the music industry changed, it was time for me to change and move on my own terrain.
Dick Wingate, how do you see this whole downloading phenomenon, the new technology transforming the music industry?
Well, I agree with both Chuck and Emmanuel in that there's a paradigm shift going on in the way artists and labels, especially smaller labels, can have a direct relationship with fans for the first time. The record business has never been very good at direct marketing, other than the clubs who specialize in that. And I worked at labels for many years, and they always thought of their customers. When they talked about their customers, they were talking about retailers. They were never actually talking about the end user. So here, for the first time, we have technology that enables a direct relationship between the artist or label and the end user. And so the record company of the future, the successful record company of the future, is going to have to be very, very good at direct marketing, because as one of you mentioned, you can put it up on the internet. That doesn't mean anyone's going to find it. There's going to be a lot of noise. There's going to be millions of recordings on the internet, far more than there are in hard form, and no one will find it unless there's a very, very good job of marketing that's being done to support it.
Is it going to fragment the industry, though, break up the big labels into much smaller fragments?
Well, there's going to be labels that will be specialized in doing, labels will become marketing intensive, and so they may focus on a specific genre and do that very, very well, and that may be their entire thing. Today, there are labels that specialize in a particular genre. The major labels, by their very nature, have to be able to sell many kinds of music because their overhead is so large. So you may have fewer of those. We already do have fewer. Now there's five major international conglomerates, whereas last year there were 6. So that process has already begun.
Emmanuel Candy, is it just a huge new opportunity, do you think, for record companies, or does this actually sound the death knell of some of these big players and the emergence of new and smaller players?
Oh, I don't think there's any doubt that it's an opportunity for a lot of new companies to come in, but the history of the record industry has been a whole host of labels coming into the market at any one time. There's thousands of record labels out there. Many of them get distributed through one of 6 or 7 warehouses. And any one of those thousands of labels now can choose on the online world to distribute themselves or make an alignment with a telephone company or any other portal or internet business. That's fine. Will it change the record industry? Not real quickly, because although there's a lot of hype about what's going on the internet, and it is moving quicker than probably what was perceived a couple of years ago, it's still got a long way to go. I mean, the forecasts out to 2003 still have the physical world selling CDs in shops at about 40-50 billion, and the online world, between selling CDs by internet mail and also digitizing, at a couple of billion. So it's going to move rapidly, but it's certainly not going to displace the traditional retail market in a hurry. And I think you get with it the massive uncontrolled piracy problem that we've got now, which we need laws and technology to solve, and the industry has to take that on, and so do governments. And the other thing is, the whole of the internet just has to get quicker. There are excellent companies out there. I suppose Liquid Audio's on your show because they're probably at the forefront of all this, but it is very slow. And until the internet or the entertainment unit, which will have the internet, is part of the household entertainment room where the TV is, and it's quick and it's easy to use, and even someone like me can go home and use it like I use remote control, we're not going to see a huge tipping of the balance of what we see in the retail market and the way consumers react until that point.
All right, we'll move on to some of those other issues like piracy in a minute, but Chuck D, can you tell us what are the economics of this new industry? What's it going to mean for consumers?
First of all, we're about two and a half years from push-button technology where a person can stay home, you know, go to a signal and download their, you know, their music that they like onto their own CD. First of all, even in America and across the world, there's more computer buyers coming into the game than TV purchases. What this means for a musician, what this means for a person that wants to be a starting person in the music business. For example, I'm in the rap and hip-hop game. I know it's a global music. It's underserviced, although. It's underserviced by the traditional means of radio, television, also retail. Retail historically has you looking at a whole bunch of plastic-covered CDs that you can never listen to, no matter how many kiosks they come up with that are paid by the big five. Just like a gentleman was mentioned earlier, you know, what this regards, you know, you going into micro-focusing on a genre. And if you cannot micro-focus onto a genre, you might be in trouble. But as far as I'm concerned, you know, we launched www.rapstation.com to be a total serviceable area to all of the rap music and hip-hop that comes out.
Yeah.
So therefore, when people are focused into a specific area of streaming, which means airplay or video play, then they could get focused on the product. And then when it comes down to an economic standpoint, it's about a new template. Do you give away 3 cuts and let them come and buy 7? That's what will determine whether the art is good or not, because you're bartering differently. And, you know, I mean, as far as somebody's P&L, whether they make $1.3 billion at the end of the fiscal year, that don't mean anything to me. My whole thing is we could cut and record at $100. Do we make $150? That's great for that business. And what you'll see is a lot of these sub-businesses, you know, kind of like really could be all over the place, making smaller profits instead of the big horses, just worrying about do they make their $1.3 billion and go off to wherever they go and just don't care about the art. So that's what we're facing. I mean, 3 years ago, or 5 years ago, people didn't expect that the big seven would turn into the big 6 and then be the big 5 on their way to the big 4 and maybe the big 3 by 2002. So my whole thing is that I think as an artist and as a growing entrepreneur, this is great because at the end of the year, my nut ain't a big one to crack. Meanwhile, I don't know, Universal, they got problems I don't care about.
All right, but Chuck, one of the big problems facing most artists now is the extent to which their own work, their own music, their own tracks are being pirated on the net.
Pirated? Look, first of all, you got to look at the internet, first of all, as being a fantastic promotional vehicle to expose the product. FM radio, you could tape that in 1969 and come up with near quality. It was the same hoopla and screaming back in the late 60s about FM radio. Now, who wouldn't want their record to be played on FM radio today? People will still support an artist or a group or an aura. It's just that the artist got to bring more to the table than just being a video and just being a record. They got to still be interactive with the audience and make the audience not just an audience, but a participant, and that's what will bring people to the table. People could tape this show. The people could tape anything off of TV and get that fine quality thing, but still something's going to bring people to the show, which makes the show profitable and prosperous. And what we're talking about is that the old way has to adapt to this new way. The new way won't fit into the old template, and that's where a lot of people are really worrying about their positions.
Dick Wingate, is it possible or even desirable to bring the internet completely under control to make sure that piracy doesn't happen?
I think there's always going to be a certain level of piracy. I mean, today's music business lives with a certain level of piracy, even in bricks and mortar stores. But what technology like ours enables is for an artist like Chuck D to decide how he wants his music used on the internet. Liquid audio allows for you to give the stuff away if you want to give it away without any security measures whatsoever. But maybe if you want to give it away and have it become not playable on a certain date, you can do that. If you want to restrict it to certain territories, which might be required for licensing reasons, you can do that. If you want to sell it, then you can make it secure, encrypted, or whatever, and sell your music in that fashion. We make tools. We let the artists make up the rules as far as how their music's going to be used. And we make sure that the artist is presented in a fashion that music consumers are used to getting, which means they are used to getting an album cover and graphics and text and liner notes when they buy a CD or when they buy a cassette. And our player, which is free for download from liquidaudio.com, allows for you to see the graphics and the liner notes and the text, and has hot links to the band's website and to a music retailer where you can order a hard CD if you want to, which is embedded with the music. Unlike an MP3, which is an audio file and that's it, the graphics and text and liner notes, the entire media package is encoded with the audio and presented when you use the Liquid Audio player.
Dick, what is this going to mean for people who, like myself, threw away their old vinyl records 10 or 12 years ago and reinvested in a CD collection? I mean, are CDs going to go the same way as vinyl?
First of all, you should not have thrown away your old vinyl collection. Someday you'll regret that. I think that CDs will be around for quite a while longer. I suspect that we're going to go through a lengthy process that may take the better part of 5 or 10 years before you'll start to see the CD really fall off in sales. By that point, hard drives and technology will be so much improved, and music on demand will be so prevalent that there'll be less of a reason to have an actual physical copy of the end product.
Chuck D.
I think that people will be burning their own CDs in the beginning of the next century, and you know, to be able to have a signal downloaded onto a CD, and then people making their own selection of a lot of music out there in the universe, I think will be a wonderful thing, and a new way of radio, you know, and a new way of people programming themselves. People want to be interactive. They don't want to just sit and wait for people to program them, and that's why I think in the old deck, which is the next decade, I think that's the flavor of the next century.
Emmanuel Candy, what is the level of piracy at the moment, and how big a threat is that to the music industry, the conventional music industry?
Well, in Australia, we've managed to keep it pretty much under control, although it has increased in the last year or so. It's about 7% of the value of the market. In various other countries, it's either completely out of control or under control. In many Asian territories, it's escalating to 30 or 50% of the market. In the internet world, unless we have these encryption techniques, and then people can make a decision about how they'll market their recordings, will they encrypt it, won't they encrypt it, then you're really dealing with a chaotic situation where you can't market and get a return on investment. Now, Chuck's going to hate the word return on investment, whether he likes it or not. He's now a record company and he's going to have to get a return, otherwise he'll be touring all the time, not selling records.
If I could give away 12 million pieces of my product and find a sponsor or find a company or to go along with that, and I know that, okay, whether it's touring or whether finding that contact base to deal with them in some kind of regards, I mean, I would look at that as being a fantastic way of exposure. And then you can't count what you don't have. And that's one mistake that the lawyers and the accountants of the business do make. They count what's not there. It will be a whole different process for them to do their accounting figure on. And pirating, what's the difference between pirating and when a record company takes 20,000 units and then distributes them across, 300 different radio stations that might choose to play or not play it? So really, they're saying we have the right to pirate, but you won't have the right to get it out there. And I think that's crazy.
They call that promotion. They call that promotion.
Yeah, they call it promotion, okay. They call it promotion in a traditional sense.
Well, acceptable level of piracy is yet to be determined. But for a legitimate commercial market to grow, meaning commercial downloads, they have to be easy to find, they have to be easy to download, and easy to purchase. Those are the three things that have to occur for that market to really flourish. When those things happen, and it becomes it becomes easier to just buy it for 99 cents or $1.49 than it does to go seek out a pirated track, which isn't going to sound as good anyway as the legitimate copy and isn't going to come with graphics and text. Then you'll start to see the growth of that market take off. But right now, there's so little legitimate content that's available for sale that that the kids at this point are almost forced to go look for the pirated tracks because there's just not that much out there.
Chuck D, the net at the moment is a bit like the Wild West, isn't it? I mean, at some point, isn't it inevitable that the marshals are going to come into town and create order and set a whole new set of rules and guidelines on the net?
Well, it's international, and that makes it very different for domestic sanctions. And then number two, the net, yes, is a growing market. That means because there's a mud road out there, do you stay with the horse or buggy, or do you get the car? I'd rather get the car, put it in the garage, you know, and just say, you know what, we're going to ride where it's dry, and I know it's going to be a highway going north, south, east, west, up and down, and I'm going to be one of the first with the car. But understand this, I'm dealing with a genre also that's being underserviced. I know what I'm dealing with, hip-hop and rap music around the world. You know, www.publicenemy.com has that outreach that a record company could not give us. So therefore, that's very important for me to understand that. And the fact that let's say if I could sell 1 million units for $1 around the planet, and the consumers know all they got to do is spend $1, why should the industry pressure them to spend you know, a minimum of 15? That ain't got nothing to do with me, especially if I'm getting 10% of that. So my whole thing, what you'll see for the first time is artists determining what the worth of their art is instead of a middleman saying, okay, this is $15. And really, as a new artist, it's really hard for a new fan base or a new list of consumers to all of a sudden say, okay, we've gone from spending $7.99 for cassettes to $16 for this new technology of this new artist who I don't know from Adam. So what you're seeing that the middlemen are starting to really trying to figure out how do they fit in, because here an artist might say, hey, I want you to buy my art for 30 cents. Or somebody might come along and say, hey, I want you to buy my CD for 50 cents or downloadable signal for 50 cents, and I got this commercial going through this phone company for about a month. So you'll see different ways that art will be coming at the public, and you'll see a more educated public. But the whole thing with super corporations, do they want a more educated consumer? No, they'd rather have a consumer buy the same thing 50 times. I know I have a direct contact with people that support me. So if it's 20,000, if it's 100,000, 150,000, I got to be able to barter with them. If I got a fruit stand and a person comes to me with 70 cents and I'm selling a banana for $1, do I make a deal with that person? Or do I just say, hey, you got to come up with 70 cents? And that's where we're at in the music business.
All right.
And people are willing to barter.
On that note, from the new entrepreneurs, I guess, of the music industry, we'll have to leave it. Chuck D, Dick Wingate, Emmanuel Candy, thanks very much to the three of you for joining us. That's our program for tonight and for the week. A reminder that you can access Lateline on the internet. Our website is abc.net.au/Lateline. But for now, from me, good night.
It's the most revolutionary thing to hit our industry probably since the electric guitar.
If an artist uses it efficiently, can just be a promotional tool.